Assalamu alaikum and a very good day, listeners. अब ये हम एक नया सिलसिला शुरू कर रहे हैं on behalf of the Octara WebMall Plus and the Readers Club. So what we've got here is a book by Mr. Amor Towles. Amor Towles, sorry, spelled Towles, and किताब का नाम है A Gentleman in Moscow. It's been written in 2016 and it's working its way up, if it's not already on the bestseller list. Amor Towles साहब बजाते खुद जो हैं वो the full-time writer of recent origin. उससे पहले 20 years he spent as a investment professional. Has a master's degree from Stanford University and graduated from Yale University. तो ये तो हो गया इनका बैकग्राउंड. किताब बड़ी ज़बरदस्त है, A Gentleman in Moscow. And this is about the Russian Revolution and the treatment of the aristocracy. उस ज़ार को कत्ल कर दिया बोल्शेविक्स ने, और उसके बाद जो है वो the nobility and the aristocracy had their job cut out for them as they were mercilessly persecuted and executed. तो उसमें उस सब गहमा गहमी के बावजूद एमोर टॉल साहब कहते हैं कि 1/3 of the Russian aristocracy stayed on in Russia. The vast majority, a large majority in fact, left the country, migrated west or wherever in the world, or were executed. But a goodly number stayed behind. And the protagonist of Mr. Towles' novel is Count Alexander Rostov, Ilyich Rostov. Count Alexander Ilyich Rostov. तो ये साहब जो हैं ये नहीं गए. In fact, he was in Paris when the news of the Tsar's execution came to him. And instead of staying in Paris, he immediately put together a rucksack and transferred, walked over and caught a lift or whatever over the continent, and very worried about his grandmother, the Countess, who was in idle hour in which is the Rostov family state. तो खैर ये आ गए, और उसके बाद इनके साथ क्या हुआ कि जी वो 4 साल ये होटल मेट्रोपोल में रहते रहे. होटल मेट्रोपोल इज वेयर ऑल द एक्शन टेक्स प्लेस. तो finally the Bolsheviks catch up with him and they summon him and they try him. And to his credit is a poem which bears his name but which he did not write. And that poem saves the day for him because it was a scathing criticism of the aristocracy. कि भाई आप हैं कौन, where is it? वो जो बड़ी बड़ी बातें आप करते हैं, noble thoughts वगैरह वगैरह, where is it finding expression? Why is the wealth gap so large? Why aren't you walking the talk? तो ये पोएम एक्चुअली लिखी थी इनके एक दोस्त ने, whom he befriends while in university. And since the revolution had failed initially in 1905, his friend, about whom this particular piece is, name of Mishka, is afraid to put his name to it, although he's written it, and he wrote the poem while staying with the Count at his family estate. वो काउंट जो है वो है तो काउंट, और उसकी ग्रैंड मदर है हयात, his parents having died when he was 10 years old. But the Count and his grandmother are no nonsense people, you know. They do not tolerate the nakhras of the aristocracy and the false pretenses and the airs which the landed gentry tends to put on. They're very practical people, you know, and they prefer industry over any of this other nonsense कि भाई को प्रोडक्शन करो. तो खैर, तो काउंट साहब अपना नाम डाल देते हैं, कहते हैं गली कोई नहीं, मैं, you know, I agree with what the poem is saying and I'll put my name to it. And when the tribunal puts him in the dock, puts the count in the dock, the thing that saves him from the firing squad is this very poem which Mishka has written. Mishka साहब इनके दोस्त होते हैं. Full name Mikhail Fyodorovich Mindich. So I will keep giving you a background to this, but the important thing here is that the count put his name to that poem. So some people might say कि यार ये तो इसने plagiarize की थी. But plagiarization की बात नहीं है, क्योंकि मिस्टर मिंडिच, वो तो बकरी हो गया था. उसने कहा नहीं यार, मैं इस पोएम को अपने नाम के तहत पब्लिश करूंगा, तो ये जो जार है और जार के साथ जो ये सारे इसकी नोबिलिटी है, ये तो मेरा तिया पाचा कर देगी. So that's when the count got up and said no, I will put my name to it, and he got away with it because, you know, उसकी family की, उसकी aristocratic credentials was so solid that nobody could point a finger, and, you know, they allowed. And this also goes to show that the Russian nobility of the time was so evolved that they took criticism from one of their own. और यही बात अगर कोई गरीब peasant करता ना, like Mishka, like Mindich. So Mishka is the name, you know, these Russians, they all have pet names. So इसका नाम जो है वो count का, he is fondly referred to as Sasha, and his friend Mikhail Fyodorovich Mindich is known as Mishka. अगर मिश्का ये बात करती तो इसको तो गायब कर देते वो, you know, he would have been disappeared. But they took it from one of their own. And it's poetic irony that when this convenes the tribunal, this is the poem that saves them. Although they are very upset कि यार ये तो इतनी जबरदस्त poem लिख के, अब देखो, look at the kind of life he is leading, because when they talk, when they ask the count कि भाई तू करता क्या है, what is your vocation, तो ये कहता है occupation. What is your occupation? तो कहता है it is not the business of gentlemen to have occupations. Typical. So then the tribunal, the prosecutor asked him, तो भाई, you are very well then, how do you spend your time? तो जनाब फरमाते हैं रोस्टोव साहब के डाइनिंग, डिस्कसिंग, रीडिंग, रिफ्लेक्टिंग, द यूजुअल रिगमरोल. तो ये जो आपकी लेजर क्लास थी ना, ये हरकतें करती थी, यू नो, सोच विचार. दे वर द ब्राह्मण्स ऑफ देयर टाइम. But as this book highlights, they were not beneath, they didn't consider it beneath their dignity to engage with in manual labor, in blue collar work, because and let me just get a little ahead of myself, कि काउंट रोस्टोव को फिर वो ट्राइब्यूनल जो है ना, वो होटल मेट्रोपोल, जो एक बड़ा डीलक्स होटल होता है इन द सेंटर ऑफ मॉस्को, वहाँ इसको अंडर हाउस अरेस्ट, होटल अरेस्ट, कि भाई अब तूने पूरी जिंदगी अपनी यहाँ गुजारनी है, ये पोएम की वजह से वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू पुट यू इन फ्रंट ऑफ द फायरिंग स्क्वाड, but this is where you're going to stay, spend the rest of your life. So the very hotel, the boyar जो है ना, वो क्या कहते हैं, प्रिंसेस से एक टेयर नीचे होता है नोबिलिटी में, एरिस्टोक्रेसी में. तो ये जो फाइन डाइनिंग रेस्टोरेंट है मेट्रोपोल का, इट्स कॉल्ड द बोयार्स्की. तो that's his favorite restaurant, and he spends a small fortune there, you know, should I say a king's ransom, eating at the boyarsky. तो अब वो साहब जब वहाँ उनको ज़िंदगी गुजारनी पड़ती है, तो वी फाइंड दैट काउंट अलेक्जेंडर रोस्टोव has become a captain. He is seating people at the Boyarsky. The a waiter, a head waiter. अब आप सोचें, and he's taking great pleasure in his job. Because होता क्या है कि with the revolution, the standard at the Boyarsky he sees dropping dramatically, and he can't take it because the Boyarsky is his favorite restaurant. So कहता है यार ये इसी तरह एक ही तरह ठीक हो पाएगा कि मैं खुद इसमें जो है वो शुरू हो जाऊं. And of course the hotel is overjoyed to have His Excellency become their head waiter. तो सर dignity of labor के ऊपर इसमें एक बड़ा strong statement है. And there's a whole lot of other stuff. But we're going to talk about Mishka here, तो Mishka साहब के बारे में ये कहते हैं कि when the Count and Mishka Fyodorovich first met at the Imperial University in St. Petersburg in the fall of 1905, the two were tigers of a different stripe. While the Count had been raised in a 20-room mansion with a staff of 14, Mikhail had been raised in a 2-room apartment with his mother. And while the Count was known in all the salons of the capital as one who could be counted on for his wit, intelligence, and charm, Mikhail was known hardly anywhere as one who preferred to read in his room rather than fritter away the evening on frivolous conversations. Two extremes. As such, the two young men hardly seemed fated for friendship. But fate would not have the reputation it has if it simply did what it seemed it would do. And if fate was predictable, then it wouldn't have such a reputation, mysterious reputation. So, sure enough, while Mikhail was prone to throw himself into a scrap, into a fight, at the slightest difference of opinion, regardless of the number or size of his opponents, it just so happened that Count Alexander Rostov was prone to leap to the defense of an outnumbered man, regardless of how ill-conceived his cause. एक तो Amor Towles साहब की लफाजी पे जरा मुलाहिजा फरमाए यार. Love, he's got a command which I find I have not come across in too many places. So, कहते हैं कि thus on the 4th day of their first year, the two students found themselves helping each other up off the ground as they wiped the dust from their knees and the blood from their lips. So that's how they became friends. While the splendors that elude us in youth are likely to receive our casual contempt in adolescence and our measured consideration in adulthood, they forever hold us in their thrall. Thus, in the days that followed their meeting, the Count listened with as much amazement to Mikhail's impassioned expression of ideals as Mikhail did to the Count's descriptions of the city's salons. And within the year, they were sharing rented rooms above a cobbler's shop off Sredny Prospect. कोई जगह है Moscow में. I'm not at all familiar with the city, although having read this book, I now fully intend to pay it a visit if I can, inshallah. So, कहते हैं कि as the Count would later observe, it was sorry about that, but it was fortunate. I think ये fortuitous जो भी लिखा है इसने, I think fortunate would be a good substitute. That they ended up above a cobbler, for no one in all of Russia could wear out a shoe like Mikhail Mindich. He could easily pace 20 miles in a 20-foot room. He could pace 30 miles in an opera box and 50 in a confessional. For simply put, pacing was Mishka's natural state. And I know a few, I think I've known a few people like that. वो बात चलते ही रहते हैं यार. And they do their thinking best when they are walking. And I think a lot of people would fall in that category by given the tremendous rise in numbers that one finds on the walking tracks of the city. So a lot of people are talking while they are walking, which is ill-advised, but a lot of them are thinking and sorting out their knotty problems as their brains get oxygenated with all that exercise. तो मिश्का साहब का ये नेचुरल स्टेट था. और he further explains कि इसकी प्रायोरिटीज किधर थी. Say the Count secured them invitations to Platonov's for drinks, the Petrovsky for supper, and Princess Petrosian's for a dance. Mishka would invariably decline on the grounds that in the back of a bookshop he had discovered a volume by someone named Flammer Hescher that demanded to be read from beginning to end without delay. But once alone, having torn through the first 50 pages of Herr Flammenhescher, Mikhail would leap to his feet and start pacing from corner to corner in order to voice his fervid agreement or furious dissent with the author's thesis, his style, or his use of punctuation. Such that by the time the Count returned at 2 in the morning, though Mishka had not advanced beyond the 50th page, he had worn out more shoe leather than a pilgrim on the road to St. Paul's. तो ये हैं ये साहब. अब इनके बारे में और भी बहुत कुछ है, but there is a time restriction here, and I think I could easily spend the next few months, because this is going to be done once a week. So, more on The Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles next week, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.